Let's look at this confusing part of the prophecy. At last was the girl. At last was the girl. Clearly, this character is not one of the heroes, and some people think that this might be Susie instead of the second hero. Nobody else fits this image. That's clearly the Root Buster. It's literally called Root Buster in the game files. But what if? I cope really hard. The reason why I started doubting something so straightforward is that the Root Buster looks different in battles when Susie casts it. It's sharp and triangular, and doesn't have just 3 waves like in the prophecy's image. The only place where we see these 3 waves being associated with Susie is the rug in her Dark World room, which, just suggesting, might have belonged to someone else before the fun gang arrived. Wink wink. Look at this. That's a crown. And another crown. And another one. And one more, and this one too. These 2 are in Noel's house, and this one is in Queen's palace. We also know, thanks to Ramp, that Chris and Des used to play with King and Queen. Ramp specifically says that these 2 took a laptop, meaning Queen, home to play make-believe. Moreover, the second and the third hero are shown as heroes, like people with bodies, unlike the first hero who is shown as a cage, and this fourth hero is also shown as something inanimate. Now, I'm not sure if all this was done to simplify the panel or to deceive us and Susie, but I knew I've seen this symbol in the game before, so I looked at the battle menu. I thought that this might be Susie's icon when she uses Root Buster, but this is her icon when she uses it, because it's in the magic section, obviously. That confused me even more because I swear I've seen these 3 waves before. And right beside the magic icon, I saw this one. This is it, the same exact symbol. And when does this icon appear? When we act. Like talking and stuff. As soon as I saw this, I remembered another example. The gasp that I gasped. Now, I knew who this girl might be. December's sister Noelle. When Spamton glitches in his shop, he suddenly says, "Can anyone hear me? Help." Then he says that he didn't hear anything, but it sounded like they were talking to you. That's creepy, but also sounds like Des. Especially since there are Des's unused dialogues in Deltarune that you could get by calling. And there she would talk about how she's stuck somewhere dark with doors closing behind her. Spamton himself got a call from somebody before going crazy. An NPC tells us that after they picked up the phone that Spamton left in horror, they could only hear garbage noise.
Great. I really understood that well.
My point is that Des is clearly connected to phones, so this icon might be her, the last girl, the lost girl. Or Noelle as her sister, and to be honest, I believe more than the last girl being Noelle, since, Des is kinda already gone and possibly takes the knight's role. And Spamton has more connections to Noelle. She's obviously tied to Chris, Des, and Azriel. The 4 kids used to hang out together all the time, but she's always been different from the rest. She's much more impressionable, easily scared, although she seems to be drawn to creepy stuff nonetheless. And creepy stuff seems to be drawn to her too. Noelle, the 4th member of the friend group, who's unaware of all the stuff happening between the light and dark worlds and believes that the cyber world was just a dream, seems to be doing much better than the rest. Although it's obvious that she, just like Chris, was still affected by whatever happened in the past. Chris used to be a little menace, but now they barely talk and are basically possessed by a demon, the player. Noelle, on the other hand, seems to be fine, but she's clearly being watched through all these weird glitching games and stuff. On top of that, Gester really wants us to corrupt her by doing the Snowgrave route, and maybe the Sword route, since both Noelle and Chris get used up in the original minigame presented by Ramp/ERAM. Let's now look at the missing part of the prophecy. Susie is clearly devastated by whatever she saw in the last panel, and her choice of words is pretty interesting. She says, as if something like that would happen. I wouldn't let it happen, Chris wouldn't let it happen, and obviously, you wouldn't let it happen. Why point out Rosie this way? He's now even more suspicious, don't you think? He's the prince of something. Somehow. He breaks the fourth wall. The final tragedy has something to do with him, and he was the only one who knew the full prophecy this whole time. And last was the girl. At last was the girl. So, if Noelle is this girl, the way she's described might suggest that she has another role in the prophecy. This description sounds as if someone was waiting for her, because she's very important. Maybe she's the sacrifice to the angel, like a sacrificial lamb but a deer. You know how animals are fed well before they're, used for certain practices? Maybe Noelle gaining strength corresponds to that. I think it might be because Noelle is the last and the most important member of these four kids, since Gaster couldn't get her for some reason. So now she's just cursed. Gaster wants to kill 2 rabbits with 1 shot. He wants you to do the weird and sword route so that you break Chris, and then use Chris to break Noelle. Also, I expect some kind of betrayal there, since Susie saying as if something like that would happen might refer to Rosie, the kindest ball of fluff, betraying the group in some way. But I don't think that he will do that willingly, since he loves both Chris and Susie. I personally see it as him finally growing a backbone and disobeying whoever is above him. He says that he thought kindness could prevent the tragedy from happening, so maybe the tragedy will have some kind of less judgment vibes, and Rosie thought that the angel would punish them only if they were evil. However, now it seems like that's not the case. And I would also like to suggest my version of the prophecy. And then, when all hope was lost for the tale, the final tragedy unveils. To save the world, there is only one way, for the prince to lay heroes on the scales.